A very good evening to all of you. Namaskar. Thank you for joining us for this special briefing on the evacuation of our citizens from Ukraine under Operation Ganga. We will try to keep it as regular as we can. As promised, we are trying to do a daily briefing, but that will of course depend on the situation and developments on the ground. But let me start with what you've seen already, which is that decision to send special envoys of Honorable Prime Minister to the 4 countries neighboring, well actually 5, but we have a common envoy for 2 countries, to the countries neighboring Ukraine. Specifically, Honorable Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia will be going to Romania and will also go to Moldova, and I'll come to a bit on the Moldova story. Honorable Minister Kiran Rijiju will go to the Slovak Republic. Honorable Minister Hardeep Puri would be going to Hungary, and Honorable Minister General V.K. Singh would be going to Poland. You've seen some reports already, let me confirm that. These special envoys will be traveling to these countries basically to coordinate and oversee the evacuation process there on the ground. If situation permitting, you might also find them going to the as close as possible to where the evacuation happening. So that will depend on the specific circumstances. But I think you will see them operating there, coordinating all the efforts and, as I mentioned, being in touch with local authorities and as well as with other partners that are helping in this process. Having said that, just to give you a sense of where our evacuation efforts are, let me begin by saying that the situation on the ground in terms of evacuation continues to be complex and fluid. You've seen that from the reports, media reports that are coming in, some of them quite concerning. Nevertheless, we have been able to accelerate our evacuation process clearly over the last 24 hours. And I will give you separate elements of that. Just a broad numbers. Our estimate is that we have, more than estimate, I think, around 8,000, over 8,000 Indian nationals have left Ukraine since we issued the initial advisories. So I go back, it's not since the conflict began, but since we issued the initial advisories, our estimate to the extent that we don't exactly know how many left between the advisory and the conflict started. We think around 8,000 citizens have left. And as I speak, I think the 6th flight has just landed. So 6 evacuation flights have landed in India, bringing back around 1,396, I think is the number that I have, 1,400 students, Indian citizens. These are 4 flights were from Bucharest, as you remember, and 2 from Budapest. So, from Bucharest and 2 from Budapest. So these 6 flights have brought back around 1,396 Indian nationals. I will come in a minute. I will come back to the
6 flights, right?
Yeah. Let me repeat again. Sorry, I think there's some confusion. As I said, over 8,000 citizens have left. That is over the advisory period, and then of course the Operation Ganga as it had started. We have had 6 evacuation flights that have landed in India. The 6th one having landed just a little while ago in Delhi. Of these 6 flights, 4 left Bucharest and 2 were from Budapest. The total number of people on these flights, 1,396. That's what our numbers are. I will come back to the flights in a minute. Our focus, of course, is on the land borders before they go to the flights, getting people out from Ukraine through the land borders. There has been some movement, an improvement on the movement into Poland. As we were discussing yesterday about the difficulties at the Polish border. I think they're still difficult, but I think it's improved. Our embassy in Warsaw was able to arrange buses at the Sheni border point. There's the Sheni-Medica border point. The Sheni side is on the Ukrainian side. So do remember that we're talking about the Ukrainian side. Things are much easier to do on whether it's the Polish or the Romanian or the Hungarian or the Slovak side. It's inside Ukraine, but I must say our embassy was able to organize a fleet of 10 buses, and I think now that's being expanded, to take students who've been stuck at the Sheni border point and take them to the Krakowiec, which is where the main border crossing is, and also to a place called Budomierz, which is even more north, a few more kilometers north on the same Polish border, and facilitate their crossing into Poland. So that has helped take off some of the pressure there. But again, this is a continuing process because there were a lot of students, and I think they still are there. On the Polish side, once they cross the border, arrangements for food and accommodation have been made in the nearby town of Resso, I think it's pronounced Resso. And a number of Indians are there currently awaiting their flights back to India. So this is a good development. We managed to get some people across, and hopefully as this bus movement and taking them to the other border points continues, we should be able to ease some of the pressure. But I must emphasize that this is still a large number of Ukrainians and other citizens at the borders. The border is pretty crowded. There has also been movement, progress on the border with Romania. But there, because of, I think 2 days ago there was a lot of movement. Yesterday movement was slow, but today I think there has been some good progress. But large crowds still remain on, in fact, all the border points, I would say. We are separately expanding evacuation process through the Hungary border. There is a city of Uzhgorod that Foreign Secretary mentioned yesterday. We are using that now as a staging point for that area. It's as far southwest of Ukraine. And Hungary also, we've had good movement of people. I'm happy to announce that we have also been able to open a new route through Moldova. An MEA team reached Moldova today morning, as Foreign Secretary mentioned yesterday. That team is now in place and is operational. They will assist in the evacuation of Indians through Romania. Moldova it's landlocked. And so these people will come into Moldova, then go from Moldova into Romania and then to Bucharest and then fly out from there. So this new route should help Indians in southern Ukraine, around Odessa and those places. I'll come to that. And those near Ukraine-Moldova borders. I am aware that some people were waiting on the Moldova side. Some people had crossed into Moldova but couldn't enter Romania. So we are now looking at how we can move them from Ukraine into Moldova into Romania. So it's in process, but some people are already in Moldova and we are trying to see how they can be helped into Romania and into Bucharest. You would recall EM spoke with his Moldovan and Hungarian counterparts yesterday and sought their support in facilitating evacuation of Indian citizens. Today, I think he's just spoken to the Polish foreign minister. And let's see, clearly at various levels, we are engaged with all the countries there with a primary focus on this. Moving on to, this is on the western part. So moving on to the other parts of Ukraine, we are encouraging Indians to move to western Ukraine, as you've seen the advisories. Our understanding is that some students in some of these cities in eastern Ukraine are boarding trains which taking them to the west. You would have seen some social media reports. I think Honorable Minister R.R. Singh also mentioned something. Some of it is confirmed, some of it is happening as we speak. But let me make a request here and emphasize something to you all and to our students and their families who are listening to this. We want to emphasize that people should not reach the border directly. Okay? If they do, they will face long waiting times to cross, as you have seen in Poland border, as you've seen on the Romanian border. So yes, please do reach the western parts of the country, the western parts of Ukraine, but please seek shelter in nearby towns. Let me repeat again. I will come back to it. Maybe as I finish. Or if you want, देखिए हमारी आग्रह रहेगी सारे जो स्टूडेंट्स हैं, इंडियंस हैं, कि आपको एडवाइजरी दी गई कि आप वेस्टर्न यूक्रेन में जाएं, पर मैं ये कहना चाहता हूं, आपसे अनुरोध करना चाहता हूं कि आप जब जाएंगे आप वहां पे डायरेक्टली बॉर्डर में ना जाएं. आप अगर बॉर्डर में जाएंगे तो वहां बहुत बड़ी भीड़ है, आपको बहुत समय लगेगा. आपने पोलैंड में भी देखा था, आप अभी रोमानिया में देख रहे हैं, बॉर्डर क्रॉसिंग में बहुत समय लगता है, ठंड में रुकना पड़ेगा. हम अनुरोध यही करेंगे कि आप कोई नियर बाय शहर में जाइए, आसपास के वहाँ गांव तो नहीं, शहर में कहीं अगर आपको वहाँ रहे, बंदोबस्त हो रही है, कुछ हमारी टीम वहाँ कोऑर्डिनेट कर रही है, पर आपके यूनिवर्सिटी वगैरह भी कर रहे होंगे, वहाँ रुकें, हमारी टीम आपको हेल्प करेगी. बिल्कुल पैनिक न कीजिए, इनफ फ्लाइट्स हैं, हम आपको भी बताते हैं इसके बारे में. So they should seek shelter in towns near the border areas, as I just said, and move to the border only in consultation with our teams, in accordance with the advisories that are being issued and will continue to be issued. Moving to the two cities in the east, well, actually not east, Kyiv and regarding the cities of Kyiv and Kharkiv, we are closely monitoring developments there, the situation. The weekend curfew was lifted today in Kyiv and in the morning. It is a weekend curfew, and at 8 o'clock today that curfew was lifted. Currently there is no curfew in Kyiv, at least in those areas. We hear that in Kharkiv also it has been lifted. But again, Kharkiv we have less understanding because in Kyiv we have better information. Our embassy has issued two advisories today, basically requesting students, asking students, subject to safety of course, to make their way to the railway station in Kyiv for onward journey to the western areas. आप जैसे कह रहे थे हिंदी में, हमारी दूतावास ने एक एडवाइजरीज जारी की हैं कि जो है कीव शहर में स्टूडेंट्स, अभी वहाँ पे कर्फ्यू नहीं है, आप निकल के जितना दूर हो सकता है आप रिस्क ना लेके कीव स्टेशन पे जाइए. वहाँ से ट्रेन्स चल रही हैं, आई थिंक कुछ फ्री बिना शुल्क के वहाँ पे ट्रेन्स चल रही हैं. भीड़ होगी, हमारे अभी देखा मैंने एडवाइजरीज को फॉलो कीजिए. So they will go to the railway station for onward journey to the western parts. Ukraine Airlines is arranging special trains for evacuations. And our latest understanding is that many students are now leaving Kyiv. Many Indian students are now leaving Kyiv. We will share with you more updates as we have them. Our embassy is actually live on this issue. So that's basically where we stand as per information. Coming on to what are we coordinating. As you are aware, a dedicated Twitter handle, Op Ganga Helpline, with the hashtag handle at Op Ganga, Operation Ganga Helpline, has been set up to assist in the evacuation process. This handle is working in coordination with dedicated control centers that have been set up for each border crossing. And we have also shared with you the new numbers of the control centers. Late last evening we shared with you. Those numbers are, as a Foreign Secretary was saying, originally we had given you direct numbers of some of the officials. They are impossible to take that many calls. We are hoping that the control center will be able to take the greater load. We will continue to expand this. And of course, there is a control room in the Ministry of External Affairs actually operating from this very building, which is operating on 24/7 basis. Just to share with you a number, it has handled more than 8,000 calls and processed more than 6,000 emails since it was set up, I think, a few days ago. Yes. The MEA control room has handled more than 8,000 calls and processed more than 6,000 emails since the control room was set up. This is apart from, of course, the calls and the messages that our embassies and our control centers abroad are receiving. This is just the Ministry of External Affairs control room here. Let me move on to the flights as I started off. Foreign Secretary indicated to you a tentative flight schedule yesterday. You saw that. We are adding to that based on demand. Demand means whenever students are there. At this moment, just to share information, over the next 24 hours, 3 more flights are scheduled. Okay, 2 of these flights will be from Bucharest. Okay, so out of the 3, 2 from Bucharest, 1 to Delhi, 1 to Mumbai. So Bucharest, Delhi and Bucharest, Mumbai. And 1 from Budapest to Delhi. So that's the next 24 hours. I don't want to give you more because we will keep on changing this. Let me emphasize another thing again to everyone, particularly to the students and other family members. Flights are not the constraint. We will add more flights as needed. We have seen some messages saying, oh, flights are going away, we will not be able to take the flights, panic is setting in. Please do not get worried. Once you cross the Ukrainian borders, we will make sure there are enough flights to bring you back, whether it takes a day or 2 more. So I wanted to emphasize this to people who are seeing. The main focus is to ensure that Indians are able to cross over from Ukraine into the neighboring countries that I mentioned. Just to emphasize also that we are continually augmenting the presence of the MEA teams for necessary arrangements at the border points in Slovak Republic, Romania, Poland and Hungary, and now today Moldova. Contact details of these teams and these control centers have been shared. We are increasing the size of the teams. We are also augmenting the strength of our embassies in these 4 countries bordering Ukraine. We are every day we are authorizing more officials and from nearby countries as well from Delhi to go and help our colleagues in these embassies. I think that's broadly a briefing on what information I have. I would just like to end my initial remarks by saying I don't think a student should panic. They should try to go to the western parts of Ukraine, wait there, contact our teams, contact our control rooms, share their location information so that we can get them registered in terms of when can they be brought out, because the borders are very crowded and you cannot just land up and expect to wait. They will wait 2 days or 1 day in the cold. And we are hoping that we are able to expand this process. Things have improved a bit significantly I would say in some of the border checkpoints, particularly the Budapest one. And we hope to augment that process in the next few days. देखिए, let me first read out कौन से मंत्री जी कहाँ जा रहे हैं. मैंने शुरू में कहा था Minister Jyotiraditya Scindia will be going to Romania and Moldova. Minister Kiren Rijiju will be going to the Slovak Republic. Minister Hardeep Puri will be going to Hungary. And Minister Jan VK Singh will be going to Poland. That's the information I have. It changes a bit. Then don't hold me to it. No, they have not left. They are here, but they will go as soon as possible. They will go very shortly. This was direction from the Honorable Prime Minister, and I think early morning today, and it will happen soon. आप पूछ रहे थे कि वो क्या उनका रोल रहेगा, करेंगे क्या. मैंने जैसे पहले ही कहा, उनका मेन रोल होगा कोऑर्डिनेशन और ओवरसी कि किस तरह से चल रहा है वहां पे. अब हमारे ये 4 जो देश हैं, और 5वां मोल्डोवा भी है, पर देखिए मोल्डोवा आधा है क्योंकि मोल्डोवा में आने के बाद फिर आपको रोमानिया में ही आना पड़ेगा. तो इनका काम उस तरह की वहीं पे अब फोकस है कि कैसे हम लोग लाते हैं बॉर्डर के अक्रॉस और फिर उनको फ्लाइट से भेजे जाते हैं. सीनियर मंत्री जी वहाँ रहेंगे. इससे 2 तरह के तो फायदे होंगे. एक तो कोऑर्डिनेशन ईजी रहेगा, प्लस लोकल गवर्नमेंट से भी हमारे उनके कॉन्टैक्ट तो जरूर बनेंगे. उसी वक्त जा रहे हैं इतनी दूर. और बाकी क्या करेंगे, देखिए सीनियर मंत्री हैं, वो अपने से डिसाइड करेंगे. आपको बताएंगे हम लोग क्या कैसे बनता है, आगे क्या स्टेप्स हैं. Yashi, you talked about 12,000 which are left and the airfare. Look, let me clarify this. I think did that. Under the evacuation operation Ganga, no one is paying any airfare at all. This is all being borne by the government of India. So if there are stories, if there are reports that students are paying exorbitant, these stories are wrong, or they are talking about before the evacuation started when people were coming on commercial flights, perhaps that could have been the reason. But certainly no. We had 6 flights. You can ask any student who has come on any of the flights. No one has had to pay a single rupee for that evacuation flight. And this is obviously part of that. We understand that the airspace is closed and there are no options, and that's why once an evacuation starts under an organized thing like Operation Ganga, it is done at the government of India's cost. The number 12,000 is a good estimate because we started around 20,000, 19,000 something. The estimate is 8,000. And maybe that's a good number. But again, these are estimates. Who knows where exactly is. In fact, that's actually our problem. Going to your question. No, I think Madhurendra ji पूछ रहे थे ना अभी इस क्वेश्चन के बारे में कि वो कितने स्टूडेंट लोड हैं. पर कहना मुश्किल है, ये सारा अनुमान है. 12,000 है, 12,000 बॉर्डर पे तो नहीं है. 1,000 हो सकता है किसी बॉर्डर पे हो, किसी में 2 हो. पहले उस दिन सुन रहे थे कि पोलैंड बॉर्डर में कोई 2-3 हज़ार लोग हैं. कहना मुश्किल है क्योंकि वो भी अभी मूव करते रहते हैं. पर जैसे मैंने कहा, हमारा फोकस ये है कि वो कहीं रहे शेल्टर में और धीरे धीरे स्मॉल ग्रुप्स में लाए. एक फ्लाइट में 200-250 लोग आते हैं, फिर ऐसे करके निकाल लिया. आपने 4 पॉइंट्स की बात की थी. 5वां तो मोल्डोवा है, पर मोल्डोवा भी फिर बुकारेस्ट में जाएगा. तो एंट्री पॉइंट 5 हो गए हैं, पर घूम के फ्लाइट पॉइंट्स 4 ही रहे. कितना समय लगेगा अभी कहना मुश्किल है. हमने पहले सोचा था कि बॉर्डर से आसानी से निकल पाएंगे, पर इतने सारे लोग हैं तो पर जितना भी टाइम लगे हम हर नागरिक को लाएंगे वापस जो आना चाहता है यहाँ वापस. Meghna, you asked about Poland, Warsaw flights. Look, Poland and Warsaw is not the same thing in the sense that Warsaw is the capital. If need be, we will look at other options. Okay, somewhere in Poland, but yes, Warsaw is a little far away. But if we can get them to Warsaw, otherwise even a nearby airport. Similarly, from Slovakia, the Slovakia airport is not that large. Could be Vienna, it could be Budapest. These decisions will be taken. You had also asked on the Moldova border. No, sorry. Moscow. Both Shinjo and you mentioned this one. Look, let me answer Shinjo's one so you'll get it. I don't think there was any indication that our teams will go into Kharkiv. No. I think the Moscow, or the Embassy of India sent a team, as I remember correctly, Foreign Secretary mentioning yesterday, which went to the border areas within Russia to see the possibility of evacuation routes as and when the situation permits. There's a live and active conflict zone. It is not the same as it is in the Western Ukraine. So there is, it is not feasible immediately to look at, just going inside there. But yes, distance-wise is much closer, and as and when, or if and when a situation arises that we are able to pull them out from that side, we're exploring possibilities and keeping plans ready. That should answer your other question. What's happening on the Moscow border? Nothing. It's a conflict zone, and obviously our people cannot go. Nobody can go. In fact, one of the reasons our students are still stuck in Kharkiv, particularly in Kharkiv, because as I say, Kyiv, there is better news of movement today with the trains. I also heard Kharkiv there are trains, just as I walked in, but I don't know if that's true. If you've heard anything, I hope that is the easiest way of coming out to the west. At the end of it, all the routes are to the west and not to the east. So maybe that would be the easiest. Yes, I can confirm that at the request of the ambassador of Ukraine, we will be sending humanitarian assistance to the people of Ukraine, to the government, to Ukraine, including medicines, which they have requested. I don't have any additional details at this moment. As he said, it's just been requested and been processed. We will share more as we go ahead. कविता जी, आपने पूछा था मिलिट्री एयरक्राफ्ट. देखिए, अफगानिस्तान में यूज हुआ था. देखिए, फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी ने आपका कल या पिछले बार जो कहा, बिल्कुल हमारे एयरफोर्स हमेशा इसमें इन्वॉल्व रहते हैं. ये तो होल ऑफ गवर्नमेंट अप्रोच है, वो तैयार है. और मैं कह नहीं सकता हूं कि कब यूज करेंगे या नहीं करेंगे, पर जरूरत पड़े हम बिल्कुल मिलिट्री एयरक्राफ्ट, इंडियन एयरफोर्स का सहायता हमेशा और रहा है और लेंगे भी. अफगानिस्तान में बगल में है तो कुछ डिफरेंट है. अब यूरोप में, और ये उस शहर में नहीं है और किसी शहर में, पर एयरफोर्स रेडी है और जरूरत पड़े तो हम उनको यूज करेंगे. अभी तो हमारा, जैसे मैं आपको कह रहा था, प्रॉब्लम एयरक्राफ्ट की नहीं है. अभी है कि लोग निकल लें, ताकि एयरक्राफ्ट हम हर रोज दो भेज सकते हैं, क्या दिक्कत है. पर वही है कि अभी फोकस है कि वो बॉर्डर क्रॉस कर ले. पर आप ठीक कह रहे हैं, हो सकता है कि ऐसा समय आए कि हमें और एयरक्राफ्ट बढ़ाने पड़े, या कोई ऐसा रनवे या कुछ हो जहां पे एयरक्राफ्ट. पर अभी मैं उस पर कंफर्म नहीं कर सकता, क्योंकि हमारा जो प्लान है उसमें अगले 24 घंटे का, उसमें तो मैंने सिर्फ कमर्शियल एयरक्राफ्ट की बात की है. और कहां पे मुश्किलें आ रही हैं, देखिए, ये कहना मुश्किल है. जहां पे भी बहुत से तादाद में लोग आ जाते हैं, सिर्फ हमारे स्टूडेंट्स नहीं, ये मैं कह रहा हूं यूक्रेन, हमारे तो सिर्फ 1000-2000 लोग हैं. यूक्रेनियन 2 लाख के ऊपर पर पहुंच गए थे पोलैंड बॉर्डर में, वहां नहीं जा पाए तो अब फिर रोमानिया बॉर्डर में आ गए. हो सकता है कल ये सब सुन के वो हंगरी बॉर्डर में लोग पहुंच जाए, जहां पे उसी पर. Somebody asked me about support, etc. Akhilesh, you were asking. Look, we have received a lot of support from all the neighboring countries. The problem is not on that aspect. It's only the immigration points on the exit from Ukraine where the problem is. I think our neighboring countries have been very helpful, and our Prime Minister, External Affairs Minister, Foreign Secretary, other people all been talking. And we have received, they have been allowed visa-free entry. They have been, moving. They have given support in terms of organizing shelters. So I think that part is going well, and I think with our ministers and special envoys going there, it will become even better. I think that will help. आप संजीव त्रिवेदी जी, आप पूछ रहे थे कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जोन्स में और एयर बबल, दो सवाल आपके थे ना. देखिए, कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जोन का यही दिक्कत रहता है. आपने अच्छा किया, आपने कहा कि कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जोन है. सच में ये कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जोन है. उसका ये मतलब होता है कि उसके आपको हानि पहुंच सकती है, आपको मतलब आप मर भी जा सकते हैं. आप देख रहे हैं ये वॉर है, तो उसमें फिर डिसीजन लेना पड़ता है. वो इंडिविजुअली ले पाएगा कि हम बाहर आए, रुके रहें, बंकर्स में रहें. अब हम तो चाहते हैं कि जल्दी से जल्दी निकल आए, पर हम ऐसा भी नहीं चाहते कि निकलने के रास्ते में उनको और क्षति पहुंचे, या फिर उनको ऐसे खतरे के सिचुएशन में पहुंच जाए वो. अब ये डिसीजन मैं जनरल कह नहीं सकता हूं. वहां पे हमारी एम्बेसी, वहां के यूनिवर्सिटी के लोग, उस शहर के क्या कर्फ्यू है, कहां पे लड़ाई हो रही है, हर जगह. देखिए, यूक्रेन बड़ा देश है, ऐसा नहीं बहुत छोटा है. देखिए, कुछ जैसे कीव में लड़ाई हो रही थी, कीव में, पर आज कह रहे हैं कि कर्फ्यू बंद होने के बाद ट्रेन चल रही हैं तो निकल आएंगे लोग. खरकीव में अगर ट्रेन चल रही है, लोग निकल आएंगे. पर हाँ, इतनी दूरी की पैदल आने की बात नहीं है. तो जब तक सिचुएशन नॉर्मलाइज ना हो, हमें देखना पड़ेगा किस तरह से उनको बेस्ट तरह से सेफ रखा जाए. और जैसे ही अपॉर्चुनिटी हो, आश्वासन ये देना चाहता हूं कि हम बिल्कुल हमारे मतलब फोकस है उस पर, हमारा नज़र लगा हुआ है कि ऐसे लोग हैं वहाँ पे, और हम कंटिन्यू करेंगे हमारी पूरी एफर्ट्स कि वो जल्दी से जल्दी निकल आए उस जगह से। आपने एयर बबल के बारे में बात की, देखिए एक आई थिंक इसमें कुछ कंफ्यूजन है। यूक्रेन से बहुत सारे फ्लाइट्स हैं, आप एयर बबल की बात करें जो बायलैटरल डायरेक्ट वाली है, यूक्रेन से बहुत लोग आए हैं जो तीसरे मुल्क से भी आए हैं, कतर से हो या किसी और से। हमने एडवाइजरी जारी की थी कि ग्रेडेड, कि पहले लगा कितना सीरियस नहीं, फिर जब सीरियस हमने कहा निकल जाइए, काफी लोग निकल भी गए। तो इसमें साथ एयर बबल और एडवाइजरी का लिंक हमने, जैसे लगा कि बहुत और चाहिए डायरेक्टली आना, तो हमने फिर बात की और एयर बबल के जो लिमिट थे वो भी हटा दिए। अब ये दिक्कत रहती है, कोविड के चक्कर में ये लिमिट्स लगाई गई थी, अब कोविड कम हो गया, ये हटाई गई हैं लिमिट्स, अब तो और भी बढ़ गए हैं फ्लाइट्स, और हम जारी रखेंगे इसका। Look, I don't think the situations can be compared. Afghanistan was in a different scenario. This is a different scenario. The flights in Afghanistan were going into Kabul. We're pulling out. Here we are doing evacuation. Yeah, I'm talking about evacuation. I'm talking about Operation Ganga versus Devi Shakti. There the flights were coming out of Kabul. Here the flights are coming out from normal civilian airports in countries which are not in conflict. So our focus here, our difficulties here are actually getting our students out of Ukraine from conflict zone and not so conflict zones. The flight is not the problem currently. It's just in Afghanistan, I think, but again, hindsight, the focus was how to even get the flights in, how get people to the flights. Similar problem in some ways, but different in many ways. I wouldn't like to talk about another operation. Let's just focus on what we have. No, sorry, I think I'm getting, let me clarify. The flights are from the 4 countries. So flights have nothing to do with Ukraine. You agree? Okay, so what is your query then? Foreign minister spoke to the Ukrainian foreign minister, president spoke to President Zelensky. I'm not sure what query you have. And there are communications that our embassy is there, people on the border are there, teams which are communicating. I assure you communication is not the issue. Okay. तो एक खार्किव के बारे में था, और नीरज पूछ रहे थे अबाउट नो रिस्पॉन्स टू कॉल्स। देखिए नीरज जी, हमारी ये कोशिश रही है पिछले 7-8 दिन में, आप देख रहे होंगे कि बढ़ाया जाए हमारे कैपेसिटी फोन कॉल्स की। पहले हमने जल्दी से जब भेजा था, सबको सेलफोन दिया था डायरेक्टली सेलफोन में, पर एक साथ अगर 50 लोग फोन करें सेलफोन में, 49 लोगों को बिजी मिलेगा, वो लगेगा कि हमें जवाब नहीं दिया, और उनका भी काम करना होता है उस समय फोन करने में। तो हमने फिर कंट्रोल रूम्स चालू किए, हमारे यहाँ पे भी है, हमने कंट्रोल रूम चालू किए हैं, एम्बेसी की भी कोई प्रेशर है। पर मैं आपको कहना चाहता हूं, आश्वासन भी देना चाहता हूं जो फोन कर रहे हैं, कि हम लोग बढ़ा रहे हैं हमारी कैपेसिटी कंट्रोल रूम्स की। आप बेफिक्र रहिए कि लोग वहां पे 24/7 आंसर करने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं। हमारी एम्बेसी अपने ही कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जोन में है, पर तब भी रिस्पॉन्ड कर रहे हैं। बट लोग जो फोन करते हैं, आपने ठीक ही कहा, उनको थोड़ा पैनिक होता है कि हमारे साथ नहीं है, इसीलिए हमने व्हाट्सएप चैनल्स भी ओपन किए हैं, ईमेल्स भी ओपन किए हैं, और अभी ट्विटर का भी किया है। और जो हमें कांटेक्ट कर रहा है, हम किसी तरह से उनको एटलीस्ट कॉल बैक या मैसेज कर रहे हैं कि आप रहे वहाँ, पैनिक मत करें, हम जितना कर सकते हैं हम करेंगे, जितनी जल्दी हो सकता है आपको निकालने की कोशिश करेंगे। तो कुछ ऐसा ना सोचे कि हमारे कॉल्स में रिस्पॉन्स नहीं हो रहे हैं। हमने सारे कॉल सेंटर्स के सारे नंबर्स फंक्शनल हैं। अगर कोई खराब हो गया नंबर हमें बता दीजिएगा, पर सब लोग लगे हुए हैं, और हम जैसे मैंने कहा, हमारे ज़्यादा अफसर भेजे जा रहे हैं, ऑफिशियल्स भेजे जा रहे हैं, ताकि हमारा कैपेसिटी टू रिस्पॉन्ड बढ़ जाए। ऑन खार्किव कल्लो लास्ट, एंड आपने भी, किसने पूछा, आपने पूछा था, नहीं आपने पूछा था, कितने लोग हैं इज वेरी डिफिकल्ट टू से। पहले कुछ हमारे पास अनुमान थे, वी हैड एन एस्टिमेट बेस्ड ऑन रजिस्ट्रेशन, बट आई डोंट नो इफ दैट्स करेक्ट। Nobody will be able to tell you. One good thing is there are lots of student agents, student contractors. So we're getting some sense. I won't like to give a number that I'm not sure of. So let me not just mention that, Kallol, right now. How many exactly? But let's see. Let's see how it opens up. How many have been able to leave? Once we know that, once we're able to reduce the total numbers, already you're down to about 12,000 or so from about 20. If it comes down a few more thousand in the next 2-3 days, then we can focus more on that. It can't be too many. I don't think it's the largest number. This story that the largest number of people are in Kharkiv is probably not correct. Okay, because now they are on the western side. Many people have moved. Whoever could move in right time has moved to the west. In Kharkiv city, I don't know. Many of them were in universities around that region. Some are in Zaporia, which is south. I'm getting from Dnipro area, on the Dnipro river, there are lots of cities. So we don't know exactly anymore, but that's why I'm saying when they contact us after saying we have reached this point, let's say I've reached Chernivtsi, or we have reached Lviv, or we have reached Uzhgorod, then we are able to understand how many are waiting outside the borders. आप पूछ रहे थे कि कितना क्या हो सकता है. जैसे मैंने कहा, हमारी कोशिश जारी है. कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जब तक चले, ऑप्शंस हमारे पास लिमिटेड है. कल फॉरेन सेक्रेटरी ने कहा कि हमने रेड क्रॉस से ही बात की है, वो भी वेट कर रहे हैं. जैसा ही कुछ कॉन्फ्लिक्ट में रुकावट हो या पॉज हो या कुछ ह्यूमैनिटेरियन ऑप्शंस हो, तो रेड क्रॉस भी इन्वॉल्व होती है ऐसी चीज़ों में. हम क्लोजली मॉनिटर कर रहे हैं, जैसा मौका मिले कुछ असिस्टेंस देंगे. बट कॉन्फ्लिक्ट जोन में कभी कभी इट इज़ बेटर टू स्टे सेफ. पर हम समझ सकते हैं उनकी पीड़ा. वो बैठे हुए हैं अंदर बंकर्स में, और जितनी जल्दी हो सके हम ट्राई करेंगे. Okay, I think that I'll come to a close on this. Thank you very much for your presence here today. The large numbers indicates enormous interest in this. My last comment would be, please do, there are a lot of unverified social media stories going around. Now that social media is a very useful tool to tell us what's happening where, but sometimes unverified stories create panic. So please be careful before giving, retweeting or giving that. Okay, thank you very much.